Good morning. Today's class is about the histology of female reproductive system, and we are going to discuss the histology of cervix and vagina. Now, the cervix, it is divided into two distinct portions. One portion is in continuity with the cavity or the lumen of the uterus, and this is the anteriorly placed portion, and this it is known as the internal os. And second portion, which is slightly protruded, this portion. So this lower end of the cervix, it is slightly protruded into the cavity of the vagina, and its end, this portion, this is known as the external os. And the cavity between the internal os and the external os, this is known as the cervical canal. And this portion which is protruding, it has the lining similar to the lining of the vagina. So this portion is known as the exocervix, and this portion, which is the internal os up to the external os, this portion, this is known as the endocervix. So they are two distinct histologically they are two distinct regions. One is this internally placed portion, which has the lining similar to the lining of the uterine cavity. This portion is known as the endocervix, and this protrusion from the external os up to this fornix portion. This portion is lined by a lining which is similar to the lining of the vagina. So this portion is known as the exocervix. Now, because of this protrusion of the cervix into the vaginal cavity, this has these recesses, the recess between this lower end of the cervix and the related portion of the vaginal cavity. These have these recesses, and these recesses are known as fornix. So they are four fornix. They are anterior and posterior fornix, and they are two laterally placed lateral fornix. Now we will discuss next the histology, though we will here discuss only the histology of this internal portion, endocervical region. So this, as we have already discussed, this endocervical region is the region which is this anteriorly placed, which has the continuity with the uterine cavity. So this portion, so this endocervical region, this has the mucosa similar to the mucosa of the uterine cavity. So the lining is simple columnar epithelium, though it is folded, and the folds are irregular and deeply placed fold. So these are the folds, and so these folds, these lining, the simple columnar epithelium, they also invaginate into the lamina propria to line these glands, cervical glands. And the cervical gland, they are highly branched tubular gland, and these branched tubular gland, they are estrogen dependent. Otherwise, these mucosa of the cervix, they don't exhibit any changes like that of the lining of the functional layer of the uterus. So only because there is no such spiral artery which undergoes that changes, hormonal changes. So these portion, they don't set during or they don't exhibit these changes, except as these glandular portion. So this glandular portion, they are estrogen dependent, and under the influence of estrogen, they start secreting mucus. Now this gland, they exhibit the changes during the hormonal changes or during the cycle or ovarian cycle. Because initially during the proliferative phase up to the ovulation, the mucus secretion is abundant, and it's more abundant towards the ovulation phase. Up to the ovulation it becomes more abundant, increases in the quantity of the mucus secretion, as well as the mucus under the influence of estrogen is watery. So this abundant and thin mucus, it facilitates the movement of the sperm into the uterus. But then during the initiation of the secretory phase or the luteal phase, this mucus becomes viscous, and it gets more viscous towards the late luteal phase, only because it hinders the passage of the sperm. This viscous mucus, it hinders the passage of the sperm. And during the pregnancy, if the embryo is implanted, so during the pregnancy these cervical glands, they proliferate further and they secrete highly viscous mucus. Under the influence of progesterone, obviously they start secreting this highly viscous mucus that forms a mucus plug in the cervical canal. And this mucus plug, it counters the entry of the pathogen even into the uterine cavity. So this is about this mucus portion, mucus gland, branch mucus gland. Now some of these glandular portion, they become like a cyst, enclosed, and these are known as the glandular cyst. Glandular cyst. Now the lamina propria on which these lie, this connective tissue on which the epithelium and the gland they are lying, this lamina propria, this connective tissue, it is a dense, more dense connective tissue, and it contains more fibers. At the same time, this is a vascular one, so plenty of vascularity is there. So lamina propria is vascular, more dense, and contains fibers. Now this beneath this is the muscularis. This muscularis, and this muscularis here is less compact, less smooth muscle than that of the uterus. So the muscle here are less than in the uterine cavity. Now here you can see up to this portion, this is the portion which is the endocervix, and from this moment, this is the protrusion. So this is lined by this lining epithelium, which is similar to the lining of the vagina. So this portion is the exocervix, and this portion is the junctional portion. Junctional portion. This portion also known as, where this junctional portion, this is known as portio vaginalis. So this is the junctional portion. Now this is again shown here. This is the endocervix with these folds and lining similar to the uterine cavity, and having these glands, cervical glands, branch mucus gland. So this is the endocervical mucosa, and this also exhibit these cystic portion related to the glandular cyst, also known as Nabothian cyst. So this is the cystic portion, and this is the exocervix, lined by the lining similar to the lining of the vaginal mucosa, stratified squamous non-keratinized epithelium, and this is the junctional portion from where the lining changes. Now we will discuss something about this change in the lining, which is known as the squamo-columnar junction. So this is the junction between this squamous epithelium or the stratified squamous non-keratinized epithelium, which line this exocervix, and this lining of the endocervix, which is the lining similar to the lining of the uterine cavity, which is the simple columnar epithelium. So it is a junction between this squamous epithelium and mucus secreting columnar epithelium of the endocervix. And this transformation, this is a view which is of high power. So here we can appreciate how the lining changes abruptly. There is abrupt change, there is no gradual change, the lining changes abruptly. So before that, this endocervix, it is lined by simple columnar epithelium with this branch gland, cervical gland, and abruptly at the junctional region this changes into the lining of the vaginal portion. Lining is now simple column, the lining is now stratified squamous non-keratinized epithelium. So there is abrupt change from simple columnar to stratified squamous non-keratinized epithelium at this junctional portion, and this is the zone of transformation, and this is just outside the external os. And because of this abrupt changes, these places are prone to neoplastic changes, intraepithelial neoplasia. So these are prone to neoplastic changes. Next is the histology of the vagina. So these portion of the vagina, they are the portion which line this from the portion of the fornix up to the portion of the vestibule. So this is divided again into these lining. Initially the lining is this mucosa, and this mucosa, it exhibit irregular mucosal fold, and lining is the lining which is stratified squamous non-keratinized epithelium. The lining is stratified squamous non-keratinized epithelium, and it appears, especially in the high power, vacuolated. That we will discuss because of glycogenation. These cells are glycogenated, so they exhibit vacuolation. Now the lamina propria on which these rest, this lamina propria, it is of dense irregular connective tissue which is rich in the elastic fibers, so that exhibit plenty of resilience. This lamina propria vascular as well as exhibit this elastic fiber. Also this is highly cellular. This lamina propria is highly cellular because of infiltration of lymphocyte as well as neutrophil. So because of this lymphocytic and neutrophilic invasion, this is highly cellular lamina propria. And as there is evident, the ridges and the papilla, these are the elongation of this connective tissue into the lining epithelium. So these are the papilla, and these are the prolongation of the lining epithelium into the connective tissue. So they are the ridges. They are prominent. The papilla as well as the ridges. So this is because they provide this friction there to counter the friction. So this interlinking of this lining epithelium and connective tissue, this provides the strength, this interlinking. And one more thing which is clearly evident here, there is no glands. This vaginal portion, this has no glands. There is no invagination of this lining epithelium and there is no gland formation here. So this portion is moistened by the secretion which is produced by the cervical glands. So this portion is moistened by this cervical mucous portion. Now this vaginal epithelium, outside this stromal portion or the lamina propria, it exhibits this muscularis layer. And this muscularis layer, it has this inner circular portion and outer longitudinal portion, and they also exhibit vascularity, and these vascularity, they even exhibit this vascular cavernous spaces. These are the vascular cavernous spaces in the muscle layer, and outside this is the adventitia. The adventitia in relation to the muscularis, this inner part, it is dense and contains many elastic fiber. However, this outer part, this adventitia, it has loose connective tissue with prominent venous plexus. So these are the lining epithelium. Mucosa with the mucosal fold having the lining of stratified squamous epithelium resting on this lamina propria, which is highly cellular, made up of dense irregular connective tissue which is rich in elastic fiber, and one prominent cheese which is missing here is it has no glands. So it is moistened by the mucus secreted by the cervical glands. And the muscularis, it is this thick muscularis which having this inner circular, though the circular layer is not that prominent, the longitudinal one is more prominent, more thicker, and they contain these vascular cavernous spaces, and outermost lining is the adventitia. Now this is the high power view of the vaginal mucosa, and one can always appreciate this vacuolation because of glycogen deposition. They are vacuolated, and this glycogen deposition is more evident because if we stain it through the iodine impregnation method, iodine containing stains. Otherwise, in the HE stain, they appear as vacuolated portion. And this vacuolation, this glycogen deposition, is more in the superficial layer. The deeper layer, they have now this glycogen. They are more in the superficial layer, and the deeper layer, they are devoid of the glycogen deposition. Also, there is lymphocytic infiltration. Clear here, lymphocytic infiltration. So this lining epithelium as well as the lamina propria underneath is highly cellular because of this lymphocytes. Now this glycogen, it is a prominent component of the vaginal epithelium, and it is less so in the deeper layer, more in the superficial layer. And these exhibit the hormonal, they are under the influence of the hormonal changes. During the follicular phase of the menstrual cycle, the glycogen accumulate in the vaginal epithelium and it reaches its maximum level just before ovulation. And estrogen, these stimulate the vaginal cell to synthesize and accumulate this increased amount of glycogen. And as these cells, they are shedded into the lumen, inserted into the cavity, they are acted upon by the commensal bacteria, this bacterial flora which reside in the vagina, and they metabolize this glycogen into lactic acid, which increases the acidity in the vaginal canal to protect the organ against the microorganism or against the pathogenic invasion. So this is the rationale of the glycogen deposition. Here again we can appreciate this mucosa, which is stratified squamous, non-keratinized, having no gland underneath, and having this cross-linking, multiple cross-linking with the underlying stromal portion, lamina propria. So there are papillary portion, there are rete ridges or the ridges, and there's multiple cross-linking providing the strength. And underneath this stromal portion, the connective tissue, it is having the cellular portion, highly cellular because of lymphocytic and neutrophilic invasion. And beneath that is the muscularis. Now this is the applied aspect, which is known as the Pap smear. In the Pap smear, what we do is we examine the cells collected or scraped from the vaginal and the cervical mucosa, and this provide a highly valuable information, diagnostic information of clinical importance, like early diagnosis of the cervical carcinoma. So in this we scrap the portion of the vaginal and the adjoining portion of the cervical mucosa, especially from this junctional region, and that portion is stained, and that give a picture of the changes, early changes in this lining epithelium, especially on the junctional region. So this is all about the histology of the cervix and histology of the vagina.